My brother cheated with my girlfriend and married her. 6 years later, my daughter forced me to face them, but my answer left everyone speechless. I never thought I'd hear those words again. The weight of them settled deep in my chest, just like it did all those years ago when I first discovered the betrayal. Back then, I was 20 years old, and life had seemed so simple, so full of possibilities. But that was before I walked into the living room and found my brother, Mike, in a way I never expected. He wasn't just my brother anymore. He was the man who had stolen everything I loved. It happened on a late autumn evening. The sky outside was a dull gray, the kind of evening that felt like it was holding its breath before the storm. I remember the smell of freshly brewed coffee, lingering from the kitchen. Everything seemed normal, but when I opened that door, everything shifted. I stood frozen, staring at the two of them, Mike and Sarah, my ex-girlfriend. They sat there, laughing as though nothing had ever happened. As though they weren't the ones who had torn apart everything I'd known. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat louder than the last. It was like my mind had frozen, and time just stopped. I remember my hands shaking as I dropped the keys to the floor. "What are you two doing here?" I asked, my voice sounding foreign even to me. Sarah was the first to speak, trying to offer me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Wesley, we need to talk," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. But it didn't matter what she said. It didn't matter that she tried to explain herself. I already knew. I could see it in their eyes. The betrayal was written all over them. They'd been together behind my back, lying, sneaking around. And now they were here, as if everything was fine, expecting me to just forget about it. I shook my head, the anger starting to burn in my chest. "No. You don't get to just walk in here like this. After everything, you don't get to act like nothing happened." Mike sat there, silent. I looked at him, my brother, my flesh and blood, and all I could feel was a cold emptiness. How could he do this to me? How could he betray me in the worst way possible? He didn't even look ashamed. He just sat there, like he had every right to be there. I could feel the anger rising in me like a tide. "You're dead to me," I said. The words came out cold, final. And I meant them. From that moment on, Mike wasn't my brother anymore. He was just a stranger to me. I didn't care that we shared the same blood. He wasn't family to me anymore. I walked out of the room, feeling the weight of the decision settle in my bones. I thought it would get easier over time. But it didn't. Every family gathering, every holiday, I had to face the reality of them, Mike and Sarah, being there. And my family, they just acted like nothing had happened. They acted like I was supposed to get over it, like it was something I could just forgive, move past. But I couldn't, and I wouldn't. That was my line in the sand. No one could cross it, ever. I told them all, if you have to choose between me and Mike, choose him. I'm done. I'm not gonna be in the same room as him, ever again, and that's been my stance for years, my non-negotiable. Time passed and life went on. But no matter how much time passed, the hurt never faded. It never got easier. The betrayal still sat with me, heavy in my chest, like a stone that refused to sink. Now, all these years later, my daughter, Lily, was about to get married. You'd think time would have healed all wounds. But some cuts are just too deep. When she told me she was inviting Mike and Sarah to her wedding, it felt like that stone in my chest had just been tossed back into the pit. When Lily sat me down, I had no idea what she was about to say. It was late afternoon, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the living room. The smell of dinner wafted from the kitchen. My girlfriend, Jessica, had just finished making her famous spaghetti. I could hear the faint sound of a car engine idling outside, the soft hum of life continuing around me. Even as my world was about to shift once again, I was about to find out just how much things had changed, and how much I was still stuck in the past. Lily had a look on her face that I hadn't seen in a long time, serious, like she was preparing to say something important. I could tell she was nervous. She sat down beside me, twisting her fingers together, avoiding eye contact that wasn't like her. She had always been the confident one, the one who knew exactly what she wanted. It made my heart tighten, seeing her so uneasy. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," she said, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of tension. I set my glass of water down on the coffee table, turning to face her. "What's going on, kiddo? You look serious." She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage before diving into something difficult. "I wanted to let you know that I'm inviting Uncle Mike and Sarah to my wedding." I could feel my pulse quicken at the mention of their names. My throat tightened, and for a moment, the world seemed to freeze around me. I wasn't sure if I had heard her correctly. "You're what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could already feel the anger bubbling inside me. "I'm inviting them, Dad," she repeated, her eyes now meeting mine. "I've been in contact with them for the past few years. They've been a part of my life, and I want them there." The room felt smaller suddenly, The weight of her words pressing down on me, I leaned back in my chair, my heart racing. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. It was like I had been punched in the chest. Lily, no, I said, my voice low but firm. You can't invite them. Not after everything they've done. Not after what Mike did to me. She looked at me, eyes wide, her brow furrowed in confusion. Dad, it's been so long. You can't keep holding on to this. It's my wedding. I want everyone there, and that includes them. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. You don't get it, do you? I shot back, my voice rising. Mike and Sarah destroyed everything. They tore our family apart, and now you're just acting like it never happened. Like it doesn't matter. Lily's face softened, but there was a determination in her eyes. Dad, you have to let go. I understand that what happened hurt you, but you can't keep living in the past. I don't want you to make this about you and them. It's about me. The words she said made sense. In some ways I even understood her perspective. But they didn't matter. Not to me. Not after everything I had been through. I had made it clear years ago I'd drawn my line in the sand, and I wasn't going to back down now. Not for her. Not for anyone. I can't just forget Lily. I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and pain. I can't just pretend like everything's fine. You can invite them, but I won't be there. I won't go to your wedding if they're there. Lily's eyes welled up with tears, and it felt like my heart shattered all over again. I could see the hurt in her face, and it nearly broke me to see her like that. But I couldn't back down. Not on this. You're choosing them over me, she whispered, her voice cracking. You're making this about your old grudges, Dad. This is supposed to be my day, and you're making it about you. I felt the weight of her words land heavily in the room. It wasn't just the anger and resentment I had towards Mike and Sarah anymore. It was about the pain of knowing that my daughter, my own flesh and blood, was hurt by my actions. And I hated that. But what was I supposed to do? Would I just let it all go and let them back into my life? I said. My voice softer now, regret seeping in. But I can't. I can't pretend that what they did doesn't still hurt. Her tears started to fall, and it felt like each one pierced me. Deeper than any of the arguments I'd had with Mike over the years. She stood up, wiping her eyes angrily, and shook her head. You don't get it, Dad, she said, her voice now full of frustration. I've been trying so hard to make this work, and all you're doing is pushing me away. And then, without another word, she walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and I sat there, staring at the empty space where she had been. My heart ached for her, for the rift that was now between us. But I didn't know how to fix it. How could I? I had been betrayed by the people I trusted most. And now my daughter was asking me to let it all go. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Should I cave in for her sake, or should I stand my ground and risk losing her forever? The truth was, I wasn't sure I could ever forgive Mike, and I wasn't sure if I could ever be in the same room with him again. Not after everything that had happened. But the hardest part was knowing that, no matter what decision I made, someone I loved was going to get hurt. The phone call came in the middle of the night. When the house was quiet, and everything felt like it was suspended in the shadows of the evening. I had just turned off the lights in the living room, and was heading toward the kitchen, to grab a glass of water, when my phone buzzed on the counter. At first, I thought it might be Jessica, or maybe Lily, though I hadn't heard from her since our argument earlier that day. But when I saw the name flash across the screen, my stomach tightened. It was my parents. I hadn't spoken to them since the fight with Lily, and I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever they had to say. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling slightly, and put it to my ear. Wesley, you've really done it this time. My father's voice came through, heavy with frustration. Your mother and I can't believe how you treated your brother and his wife. You're acting like a jerk. You know that. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My father's voice, usually calm and measured, was filled with disappointment. I could feel my own anger rising, but I kept it in check. I didn't want to lash out at him, but I also wasn't ready to back down. I told you everything, Dad, I said, my voice tight with emotion. How could you expect me to just forgive them? After everything that happened, you've been holding on to this for years, Wesley. Years. It's time to move on. It's your daughter's wedding, for God's sake, he argued. You can't keep making this about you and Mike. I bit my lip, holding back the urge to scream. How could they be so blind? How could they not understand the depth of the betrayal? It's not just about me, Dad. It's about respect. It's about trust. Mike destroyed all of that. You're still clinging to this old grudge, and it's tearing our family apart. You're pushing everyone away, he continued, his tone growing more exasperated. The words stung, but they weren't new. My family had been saying the same things for years. They couldn't understand why I couldn't just forgive Mike. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't let go of the past. But how could I? How could I look the other way after everything Mike had done? Dad, it's not just a grudge, you don't get it. He hurt me in a way I can't forget. And now you're asking me to act like nothing happened. Like it's all water under the bridge. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. I can't do that. I won't. I heard a sigh on the other end of the line, followed by my mother's softer voice. Wesley, we love you, but you need to hear this. You're being stubborn and selfish. Your daughter wants her uncle there. You're hurting her by holding on to this. I closed my eyes and gripped the edge of the counter, feeling the weight of their words. It felt like everything was closing in on me. Lily wanted Mike at her wedding, and my parents were pushing me to give in. They didn't care that Mike had torn our family apart, they just wanted peace. And all I wanted was to protect myself from the same pain that had haunted me for so long. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself, I said, my voice low but firm. I've been clear with everyone about my boundaries, and I'm not backing down now. There was a pause, a moment of silence where I could hear my father's frustration on the other end. I don't know what you want from us. Wesley. You're making this harder than it has to be. I want you to understand, I said, feeling my chest tighten. I want you to understand why I can't just forgive him. Why I can't pretend everything's okay. But before he could respond, I ended the call. I didn't have the energy for another argument. The conversation had left me exhausted, like I had just run a marathon I never signed up for. My heart felt heavy, weighed down by the decisions I had to make, and the people I loved who seemed so far away. The rift between us was widening, and no matter how much I tried to explain, I knew it wasn't going to be easy to repair. Jessica had been listening quietly in the hallway, her face filled with concern when I hung up the phone. I turned to her, trying to mask the exhaustion I felt, but I knew she could see through it. Are you okay? She asked softly, stepping into the room. I nodded, though I didn't feel okay. Just the same old argument. They're all on Mike's side. I don't know how to make them understand. Jessica stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me, pulling me into a hug. Her warmth was comforting, but it didn't erase the gnawing pain in my chest. I wanted to be there for Lily. I wanted to be part of her wedding, to be the father she needed. But how could I, knowing that Mike would be there? How could I face him without the past tearing me apart? I know this isn't easy, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. But maybe there's a way to work through it. Maybe you don't have to give in completely. Maybe there's another option. I don't know what that option is, I muttered. I feel like I'm backed into a corner. She looked at me with those soft, understanding eyes. You don't have to make a decision right now, Wesley. Take some time. You've got options. You don't have to choose between them and Lily, but you'll need to figure out how to stand your ground without losing her. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to balance my past with the future. I felt like I was at a crossroads, with no clear path forward. But for the first time in a while, I allowed myself to feel some hope. Maybe Jessica was right. Maybe there was a way to navigate this storm without completely sinking. But even as I considered her words, I knew the truth. No matter what I decided, it was going to come at a cost. The doorbell rang late that evening, just as I was sitting down to dinner. It wasn't the usual time for visitors, and I couldn't help but feel a tight knot in my stomach as I stood up to answer it. I wasn't expecting anyone, but as I approached the door, a sinking feeling told me exactly who it was. I opened the door slowly, and there they were, Mike and Sarah, standing in the doorway as if they belonged there. Mike was smiling, his usual easy grin, like he hadn't just torn apart my life 26 years ago. And Sarah, her expression more guarded than I remembered, but still the same woman who had once been the center of my world. Hey, Wes, Mike said, his voice as casual as if we were old friends. Mind if we come in for a minute? We need to talk. I froze, unable to move. There they were, standing right in front of me, just like that. After all these years, after everything they'd done, I wasn't prepared for this moment. I wasn't prepared to face them. Not like this. I don't want you here, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. The anger bubbled up again, raw and immediate, like a fire that had never been fully extinguished. What the hell are you doing here? Mike's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. He glanced at Sarah, who looked like she wanted to say something but held back. I could tell she was uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. Not when all I could feel was the betrayal they had inflicted on me. Wesley. Sarah spoke up, her voice soft but insistent. We've been trying to reach out. To make things right. We thought it might be time for all of us to sit down and... No. I interrupted, stepping back from the door. No, you don't get to walk in here and act like everything is fine. Like nothing happened. You ruined everything. You and him. I pointed a shaking finger at Mike. You don't get to pretend we're family anymore. I told you both, years ago, that I was done with you. I meant it. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear the sound of my own breathing, heavy and harsh in the quiet of the house. Mike didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, shifting uncomfortably on his feet. He looked at me with those familiar eyes, the eyes of the man who had once been my brother. The same eyes that had shattered my world. "You need to leave," I said, my voice low and steady now. I wasn't yelling anymore, but my words felt like a command. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but I wasn't going to let them see how much they were affecting me. I couldn't let them win. "We don't want to cause trouble," Mike said, his voice almost too calm. "We just want to talk, to fix things. I know it's been a long time, but fix things." I repeated the words, tasting bitter in my mouth. "You don't get to fix things. You broke it. You broke everything, Mike. I've spent years trying to move on, trying to pretend like it didn't happen. But I can't do that anymore. Not for you. Not for her." I nodded towards Sarah. Lily's face flashed in my mind, and for a moment my anger wavered. She was going to get married soon. This was her moment. It should be a time of celebration, not more of this. But I couldn't ignore the truth. I couldn't pretend like everything had just disappeared because it was convenient for them. "I don't care about your apologies," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You need to leave. Now." There was a long pause. Sarah looked like she wanted to say something, but Mike spoke first. "We just thought," he began, but I cut him off. "I don't care what you thought. I don't care about your excuses. You need to get out of here." My voice broke slightly on the last word, but I wasn't going to back down. Not now, not after everything. Mike's face darkened, but he didn't argue. He glanced at Sarah, who had her arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. I could see the tension in her posture, but she didn't say anything either. For a moment, I thought they might try to push further, but instead, they both turned and walked out without another word. I shut the door behind them with a finality that felt like a weight lifted, but also like something had been ripped from me again. The silence in the house was deafening. I stood there for a long moment, trying to calm my breathing. My hands were still shaking, and my chest felt tight. I had done it. I had told them to leave. I had stuck to my guns, even though it hurt. But as the adrenaline began to fade, the weight of what I had just done settled in. Lily had to know what had just happened. I wasn't sure how she would react, but I knew one thing for certain: she wasn't going to be happy. And that thought made my stomach turn. How had it come to this? How had things gotten so complicated? The doorbell rang again, and this time, I knew exactly who it was. I didn't even have to look to know it was Lily. My heart sank, but I forced myself to open the door. She stood there, her face flushed, her eyes red from crying. She had obviously been upset, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt her further. But I didn't know how else to handle this. "Dad," she said, "why did you do that?" "I had to," I said, my voice low. "Lily, you don't understand what they did to me. You don't understand what it's like." "I do understand," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "But you don't understand me. You're making this about you. This is my wedding, Dad. And you're choosing your anger over me. Over your daughter." Her words hit me harder than anything Mike or Sarah could say. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, I just stood there, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. "I don't know how to fix this, Dad," she said quietly, her tears falling freely now. "I don't know how to make you understand." And just like that, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. The line I had drawn in the sand, the one I'd sworn I'd never cross, was costing me more than I was willing to pay. I sat in the living room, the dim glow of the table lamp casting long shadows across the floor. The house was unnervingly quiet, too quiet. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, a sound that normally comforted me. But tonight, it felt like a reminder of all the things that had gone wrong. It had been hours since Lily left, but her words still echoed in my mind. "You're making this about you," she'd said, her voice cracking. "You're choosing your anger over me." I wanted to call her, to fix things. But what was I supposed to say? I couldn't take back the things I'd said to her. I had pushed her away because of a man who had destroyed my trust. But was it worth it? Was it worth losing my daughter over a betrayal that had happened so long ago? I glanced over at the phone, my finger hovering over the screen. But just as I was about to pick it up, the phone buzzed in my hand, and I saw the name on the screen: Jessica. I let out a breath, almost relieved. I hadn't spoken to her much since the argument with Lily, but I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice betrayed me. "You okay?" Jessica's voice was soft, concerned, but there was also a firmness there, like she was ready for whatever I needed to say. "I don't know," I replied, rubbing my hand over my face. "Lily's upset. She's really upset. And I don't know if I did the right thing." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her moving around, probably doing something mundane, Like making dinner or folding laundry. It was the small things she always did, the things that grounded me. Wesley, I know this is hard, but you have to understand where she's coming from. This is her wedding. She wants her family to be there, and I get that. But you can't keep punishing her for things that happened years ago. I'm not punishing her, I said, my voice rising slightly, though I tried to keep it in check. I'm protecting myself. You don't understand, Jessica. You didn't see what they did to me. You didn't have to live with it. I'm not asking you to forget what happened, Wesley, she said softly, her words carefully measured. I'm asking you to think about what's at stake here. Your relationship with Lily, with your family, it's all hanging in the balance. And right now, you're the only one who can decide if you want to fix it. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. She was right. As much as I wanted to hold on to my anger, my hurt, I knew that it was only pushing Lily further away. I didn't want to lose her. Not like this. Not over Mike. I don't know how to fix it, I admitted, my voice breaking. I can't just let them back in. I can't pretend everything's okay. I'm not asking you to, Jessica said. But maybe there's a way to find a middle ground. Maybe you don't have to forgive Mike, but you can be there for Lily. You can still support her without giving in to what they want. Just think about it. I sighed deeply, running my hand through my hair. I don't know, Jess. I feel like I'm stuck between two impossible choices. If I go to the wedding, I'm betraying myself. If I don't go, I'm betraying Lily. I wish I could give you an answer, Jessica said, her voice full of empathy. But I can't. You're the only one who can make this decision. Just remember that it's okay to put yourself first, too. But if you want to fix things with Lily, you have to show her that you're willing to try. It's not going to be easy, but nothing worth fighting forever is. We talked for a while longer, but as the conversation ended, I was left alone with my thoughts again. The weight of the decision still pressed down on me. I had spent so many years building up walls around my heart, walls to protect myself from the pain of betrayal. But those same walls had kept out the people I loved most. As I sat there, staring at the empty space where my daughter had been, I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. But what was the right choice? And how could I live with the consequences, whatever they were? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. And no matter what, someone was going to get hurt. The question was, could I live with that? Could I live with losing more of my family? Or would I find a way to heal the wounds, even if it meant swallowing my pride? The next few days passed in a blur. I barely slept, my mind constantly racing with thoughts of what to do. I could feel the strain in my relationship with Jessica. She was patient, but I knew she was frustrated with me, with my indecision. I was frustrated with myself too. Every time I thought I was close to making a decision, something inside me hesitated, something pulled me back. And then, one afternoon, the phone rang again. This time it was Lily. Dad, she said, her voice small and tentative. Can we talk? It was a moment I had been dreading, but also hoping for. Maybe this was the conversation that would change everything. Or maybe it would make things worse. I don't know what to say, Lily, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. You don't have to say anything, she replied softly. I just want you to listen. I sat down on the couch, the phone pressed tightly to my ear. I had no idea what was coming next. But I knew that this conversation would be the turning point. It was the moment where I either chose to move forward with my daughter, or let the past continue to tear us apart. I wasn't prepared for the phone call, but when it came, it was a moment I had been dreading for days. It was the afternoon, the sun lazily setting over the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room. The smell of the coffee Jessica had made earlier still lingered in the air, and the ticking of the clock on the wall seemed louder than usual. I had just finished pacing the floor, trying to figure out what to do about Lily, when the phone rang again. This time, I wasn't so sure who it was going to be. I picked it up, my hand trembling, already knowing deep down that it wasn't going to be easy. Hey Dad. Lily's voice came through the phone, soft but resolute. I need to talk. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the wall, bracing myself for what was to come. I had spent the last few days trying to calm down, trying to make sense of everything that had happened, but all of it felt like a whirlwind I couldn't escape. I'm listening, kiddo, I said, my voice tight. What's going on? I've been thinking. She started, her words carefully chosen, like she was picking her way through a minefield. About what you said, and what happened when Uncle Mike and Sarah came over, and about what you told me the other day. And I know it's complicated. But I can't let it go like this anymore. I could feel my heart begin to race. I could sense the weight of everything on her shoulders. She had been walking a fine line for a while now, torn between loyalty to her family, and a desire to move on from the past. And I was the one pushing her away. I'm sorry, I said, the words coming out more like a plea than an apology. I never meant to hurt you, Lily. I don't know how to handle this. It's been so hard for me, and I don't want to make your wedding about me. I get that. She replied softly, and I could hear the pain in her voice. But I don't want to lose you, Dad. I don't want to feel like I have to choose between you and him, between what happened years ago and what's happening now. I want us to have a family again. But I also want you there. For me. The words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't asking me to forgive Mike. She wasn't even asking me to forget. She was asking me to be there for her, to put aside the anger, the hurt, and just be a father. I ran my hand over my face, trying to make sense of the emotions that were storming inside me. Was I really willing to lose her over something I couldn't change? Was my pride worth the cost of my relationship with my daughter? I'm stuck, Lily, I said, my voice breaking. I don't know what to do. I don't want to keep holding on to this grudge. But every time I think about being in the same room with Mike, I just can't do it. I'm scared that I'll snap, that I'll lose it all over again. Lily was quiet for a long moment. The silence hung between us, thick with all the things we hadn't said. Dad, I'm not asking you to pretend that everything's okay. I know it's not. But I need you to be there. I can't have my wedding without you. I could feel the lump in my throat grow, threatening to choke me. I don't know if I can face him, I whispered. You don't have to, Lily said, her voice steady now. I don't need you to make nice with him. I just need you to show up. I need you to be there for me. Please. It was the please that broke me. It wasn't the anger or the frustration or the hurt. It was her voice, her plea for me to be the father she needed. I had always been her protector, her rock, and now she was asking me to be that, even if it meant swallowing my pride and facing the past. I don't want to lose you, Lily, I said, my voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do, but I'll try. I'll try for you. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. Maybe there wasn't a perfect solution to all of this. Maybe things would never be the same. But for Lily's sake, I had to find a way to move forward, to be there for her without letting my past destroy what was left of our family. I love you, Dad. Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. I know this isn't easy, but I want you to be there with me. Please, let's fix this together. I love you too, kiddo. I replied, the words coming out raw, real. I'll be there. I promise. The conversation ended with a quiet promise between us, a promise to move forward, even if it was just one step at a time. As I hung up the phone, I sat there in the silence of the house, wondering if I had made the right choice. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive Mike. But I knew I had to try for Lily. The next few days passed in a blur. I did the best I could to keep my focus on the future. On the fact that my daughter was about to marry the love of her life. But the closer we got to the wedding, the more I felt the weight of everything pulling at me. Could I really do this? Could I put my past behind me and show up for her, for this moment in her life? The truth was, I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to try. For Lily, for my family, and for once, I was ready to face whatever came next, no matter how hard it might be. The days following my conversation with Lily passed in a blur. The weight of her words still hung over me, a constant reminder of the impossible decision I had made. I tried to focus on the wedding, to think about what mattered most. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Mike's face. The face of the man who had destroyed everything. I wasn't sure how to go through with this. How could I show up at her wedding, knowing he would be there? The phone rang one afternoon, pulling me out of my thoughts. I picked it up without checking the caller ID, hoping it wasn't more bad news. Dad, we need to talk. Lily's voice came through, clear but hesitant. I felt my heart. After everything that had happened, part of me had hoped she would let things go, that we could just move on. But I knew better. There was more to come. Lily, what's going on? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've been thinking, she began, her voice soft but determined. About everything. And I need to tell you something. A sinking feeling filled my stomach. Was she going to tell me she was giving up on me? I had already pushed her away once, and the thought of losing her for good terrified me. What is it, honey? I asked, my voice tight with worry. Dad, she said, her voice cracking slightly, there's something you don't know. Something I didn't want to tell you, but I think you need to know now. My mind raced. What could she possibly say that I hadn't already heard? Go on, I urged her, my heart hammering in my chest. Lily took a deep breath, as if gathering strength. Uncle Mike isn't just coming to my wedding because he wants to be part of the family again. He's not doing it for us. He's doing it for himself. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I closed my eyes, trying to process what she was saying. What do you mean? I asked, though deep down, I already knew the answer. Mike had never been the selfless type. I found out, Lily continued, her voice now more controlled, that Mike's been trying to fix his image for his son's wedding. The family hasn't forgiven him for what he did to you, and he's been using me, using my wedding, to try to make people forget. He thought if he could mend things with you, maybe the rest of the family would come around for his son's wedding. I felt a chill spread through me, the anger bubbling up from deep inside. It was exactly what I'd suspected. Mike had been playing everyone, manipulating me, manipulating Lily. All of it had been a game to him. And I was nothing more than a pawn in his twisted little plan. I could hear Lily's voice tremble as she spoke. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't know until recently, and I didn't know how to tell you. But now that I know, I can't pretend like nothing's happening. I don't want to be used like that. And I don't want you to feel like you're just part of his plan." I felt my anger rise again, stronger now. I had trusted Mike. I had trusted him as my brother, as family. And now to find out he had been using me, using all of us like this. I couldn't let it stand. Not anymore. Not after everything that had already been taken from me. "Lily," I said, my voice tight with emotion. "I don't know what to say. I can't believe he's doing this. You deserve better than that. You don't need him at your wedding. You don't need someone who only cares about what they can get from you." "I know, Dad," she replied, her voice full of regret. "I was so angry when I found out. I felt betrayed, like he was using me to get to you, to fix his own problems, but I had to make a choice. And I choose you, Dad. I choose you." I closed my eyes, the tears threatening to fall. I had pushed her away so many times, but she was still here. She still wanted me. I had been so consumed by my own pain, by my own anger, that I hadn't seen how much she needed me. How much she still loved me. "I'm so sorry, Lily," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I'd been a mess. I didn't want to hurt you. I just couldn't let go of what happened." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "It's not just about what happened, Dad. It's about moving forward. We can't keep living in the past, no matter how hard it is. We have to start somewhere." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle on my shoulders. I had been holding on to this for so long, refusing to let go, but maybe it was time to move forward. "For Lily. For us. I'll be there, Lily," I said, my voice firm. "I'll be there for you, no matter what. But we have to do this right. No games. No pretending. We have to be real with each other. We have to start over, one step at a time." I could hear the relief in her voice when she spoke again. "Thank you, Dad. That's all I need. I don't need perfection. I just need you." We talked for a little longer, making plans for the wedding, and talking about everything that had happened. And though I knew there was still so much to work through, something in me felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Maybe this wasn't the end of everything. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Later that evening, I sat in the living room, the quiet settling around me. I thought about everything that had happened, the years of anger, the betrayal, the distance. And for the first time, I thought maybe it was time to let go. Maybe it was time to heal. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was willing to try. For myself. As the days passed, the reality of what lay ahead began to set in. I had made a promise to my daughter. Now it was time to see if I could keep it. The wedding day arrived faster than I expected. It was a bright, sunny morning, the kind of day you'd imagine for a wedding, clear skies, the smell of fresh flowers filling the air, and a sense of excitement bubbling up from everyone around. But for me, it felt like a weight was pressing down on my chest. Every step I took seemed heavier than the last, as if the past I had tried so hard to outrun was catching up with me. I hadn't seen Mike or Sarah since our confrontation. And the thought of facing them at the wedding made my stomach churn. I had promised Lily I would be there, and part of me was relieved that I had kept my word. But another part of me, the part that still held on to the hurt, was dreading what was about to happen. The ceremony was set to begin in just a few hours. I stood in the hotel room where I had been getting ready, staring at myself in the mirror. My shirt felt too tight, the collar choking me a little, but I couldn't bring myself to loosen it. I couldn't bring myself to relax. My thoughts were a whirlwind. Should I go through with this? Was I making a mistake by pretending everything was fine? "Hey." Jessica's voice cut through the haze of my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. She stepped into the room, her eyes meeting mine with that steady, unwavering support that had kept me grounded through so much. "You look good. Ready?" I shook my head, the knot in my stomach tightening. "I don't know if I can do this, Jess. I don't know if I can sit through the ceremony and pretend like everything's okay." She walked over to me, her steps slow but sure, and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to pretend. You just need to be here. For Lily. For her happiness." I let out a long breath, trying to steady my nerves. I promised her. I told her I'd be there. But I don't know if I can look at Mike and not feel the anger. It's been 26 years, and it still feels like it happened yesterday. "I get it," she said quietly, her hand squeezing mine. "But sometimes, moving forward doesn't mean forgiving everything right away. It means taking small steps, even when it's hard. This isn't about Mike. It's about Lily. She needs you here. And that's what matters. I nodded, the tension in my chest easing just a little. I still didn't know what to expect, but I knew Jessica was right. This was for Lily. I had to try for her. The ceremony was beautiful. As I sat there, watching Lily walk down the aisle, all my fears about facing Mike seemed to melt away. She looked so radiant, so full of joy. In that moment, nothing else mattered. I could see the love in her eyes as she gazed at her soon-to-be husband, and I realized that my place was here, beside her, supporting her, no matter what had happened in the past. And then, just as I had feared, Mike was there. He stood in the back, his eyes scanning the room. I could feel his presence even though I wasn't looking directly at him. It was like he was a shadow, looming just beyond my reach. I had promised myself I wouldn't let him affect me today, but his presence stirred something inside me. Anger, resentment. It was hard to say, but it was there, simmering just below the surface. But I kept my eyes on Lily. I kept my focus on her, on the happiness she deserved. I watched as she exchanged vows with the man she loved, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. I was here. I was present. I was doing what I had promised. And in that moment, I knew it was the right thing to do. The reception that followed felt like a blur. People danced, laughed, and celebrated, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of the past still lingering. Every time I passed by Mike or Sarah, the tension would rise, but I pushed it down. For Lily, I couldn't let the past ruin her special day. It wasn't until later, when the guests had started to filter out, and the music had slowed down, that I had a chance to speak with Lily alone. She was sitting on a bench outside, her eyes sparkling with the happiness of the day. But there was something else in her gaze, a quiet uncertainty. As if she were waiting for something. I walked over and sat down beside her, not sure what to say. "You look beautiful," I said, my voice soft. "Thanks, Dad," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. "I'm so glad you're here." I nodded, struggling to find the words. "I know I've made things difficult, Lily. I know I've let my anger get in the way. But today, seeing you, I realize how much I've missed being part of your life. I've missed you so much." She smiled, a small but knowing smile. "I've missed you too, Dad. I know this hasn't been easy, but I just want you to know that I'm happy. And I want you to be happy too. I'm trying," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I really am. I don't know if I can ever forgive Mike for what he did. But I'm trying to let go. For you." She reached over and took my hand, her grip strong and steady. "That's all I want, Dad. I don't need you to forgive him. I just need you to be here, with me." For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of relief. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew that this was the first step. The past was still there, but it didn't have to define us anymore. Maybe one day, I could find a way to forgive Mike. But for now, this was enough. I had my daughter back. And that was all that mattered. As we stood up to join the others, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't the perfect resolution. It wasn't the closure I had imagined all those years ago, but it was something. And for now that was enough. We walked back into the reception hall together, my arm around Lily's shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be,